The Nokodemion story, an evolutive perspective.
People who come across the Billy Meier information and find it credible are confronted with a lot of mind-blowing, eye-opening information, some of which takes quite a lot of digesting, since, of course, our view of many things has been turned totally upside down by it. But among all those things, perhaps the most challenging is this. Not only are we called upon to consider that Billy Meier's spirit form is that of the one true prophet for planet Earth, prophet equal sign teacher of the creational natural laws and recommendations, which has performed that role over millennia in the form of 7 prophets of the same lineage, reaching back to the time of Adam. No, it's not only that. We are then called upon to consider the explanation that Billy Meier's spirit form is that of a universal prophet, a unique spirit form with the role of providing the teaching of the truth, the teaching of life, the teaching of the spirit, to human beings throughout our entire universe, stretching back billions of years. I know that for me this has just been too much to digest all at once, and only now do I seem to have the energy to give the Nokodemion story the necessary space and thought. Up until recently, I found the story just too much. Too big, too old, too unique, too strange. The only true prophet of the whole universe, the likes of which there had never been before him, and never would be again. But I finally had a bit of an aha moment while reading Bernadette Brand's book about it again recently. For the same reason the explanations about the recommended structure of the family made sense to me at last, I came to appreciate the rightness of the only one prophet idea by contemplating how it serves evolution and is the product of evolution. Only that perspective helped me to stop thinking it sounded too incredible or too contrived, although I never doubted its truth despite my inability to understand. In stark contrast to the story around Christianity's Jesus, for example, the story of Billy Meier's spirit form is all to do with the result of a normal and gradual process of evolution, making that person equal by nature to every other human being and thus the same as everyone else, only just much further along the natural evolutionary path. The uniqueness comes about due to the necessarily one-off form the universal prophet role has to take for it to be effective. More on that soon. All this teaching of life, teaching of the truth, teaching of the spirit, is based on the teaching that everything evolves. Even the creation itself evolves and is not perfect. How does a creation evolve? A creation evolves by eventually producing a self-thinking being, the human being, conscious of his/her own consciousness, who develops love, knowledge, and wisdom, which is stored in its pure essence in the human being's spirit. How do human beings develop that love, knowledge, and wisdom? It is through life experience, through striving. Part of that is that we share information to help each other, and we devise methods and systems that are beneficial for our wider community. While a simple member of a tribe may develop a simple tool to aid his or her community, at the other extreme, the wisest of the wise is devising a way to spread the best available teaching of life, the spiritual teaching, across the entire universe. Each group or village has a member who is a little or a lot more knowledgeable and wise than the others, and can thus teach, and earns respect due to his or her valuable contribution. In the case of Nokodemion, with a great deal more knowledge and wisdom, the evolution of all the human beings is furthered, the level of love, knowledge, and wisdom of the entire peoples of the universe. He achieves this through creating his own special people who are taught the teaching from birth and are raised to spread it throughout the universe, thus preventing needless and great deviations from the true path by peoples who had never been taught by more advanced ones. Billy explains to Ptah, in the 356th contact on the 7th of May 2008, that it is a creational law that every universe produces a universal prophet, and only one, in order to ensure the evolution of the people.
The fact that a figure emerges in the creation's universe and takes on the duty of a proclaimer, that is to say, a prophet, is determined by a creational law, and namely so that a basis of knowledge and wisdom is conveyed to all consciousness-based evolutive life forms, indeed the human life forms, from which they can learn and evolve. If that were not the case, and if such a proclaimer had not emerged already in very early times, who brings and teaches a certain evolution-capable knowledge, as is given through the high spiritual level of the Arahat Atharsata level, and given by this to the proclaimer and spread by him, then there would be no evolution of the consciousness. Endpaterne 19. Dass eine Gestalt im Schöpfungsuniversum auftaucht und die Pflicht eines Künders, that is to say, Propheten übernimmt, ist durch ein Schöpfungsgesetz bestimmt. Und zwar darum, dass allen bewusstseinsmäßig evolutiven Lebensformen, eben den menschlichen Lebensformen, ein Grundstock an Wissen und Weisheit vermittelt wird, woraus sie lernen und evolutionieren können. Wäre dem nicht so und würde nicht ein solcher Künder schon zu sehr früher Zeit in Erscheinung treten, der ein gewisses evolutionsfähiges Wissen bringt und lehrt, wie es durch die hohen Geistebenen der Ebene Arahat Atharsata und von dieser dem Künder gegeben und von diesem verbreitet wird, dann gäbe es keine Bewusstseinsevolution.
Billy explains, the information is then spread verbally by the peoples and is also spread via the collective subconsciousness and other swinging waves ever further into the entire universe. So the development of knowledge and wisdom once begun cannot be stopped. Now the question arises, how did Nokodemion create his special human beings? Bernadette Brand explains p. 12 second paragraph that Nokodemion created his first peoples around 9.6 billion years ago, partly through normal and artificial conception, as well as through the bringing together of groups of existing peoples, and also through clones.
Nokodemion schuf vor etwa 6 Milliarden Jahren teilweise durch normale und künstliche Zeugung sowie durch Zusammenführung von Gruppen bestehender Völker wie auch durch Klonen seine ersten neuen Völker, die zum Teil durch Geistformen aus dem Neugeistformenpool der Schöpfung belebt wurden.
So he did not actually create spirit forms, but rather clones and others which took up the existing spirit forms created by creation. Even a great teacher, proclaimer, has to abide by the laws of creation. As ever, it is logic, not belief, that makes this fantastic-sounding story credible. If there was no prophet educating the other human beings and who was advanced beyond all other human beings in the universe, how could evolution continue? And if he or she did not bring knowledge, love, and wisdom from above the level of the physical human beings of the universe, thus from the first purely spiritual level into which he had evolved, then how could the physical people evolve further than they were? And that introduces the story about Nokodemion coming back from the spiritual realm of Arahat Atharsata, a story which again once grated on my poor, once religiously infected world of thoughts, which still recently wanted to reject everything that sounds like the religious nonsense. But where Jesus is supposedly came back from the dead to save us from our sins, thus removing our reason to correct our own behavior, Nokodemion came back from the Arahat Atharsata level, where his spirit form had evolved to spread the teaching once again, so that it would never be forgotten again. This was to correct for problems that occurred as a result of the original plan which had, over millennia, partly gone wrong due seemingly to a couple of oversights by Nokodemion when he brought his peoples together. With evolution comes errors and setbacks, even for a prophet. But what about the fact of Nokodemion being just one individual spirit form, albeit returning innumerable times as different personalities through various incarnations? This is answered by the explanations addressing the need for order. More than one leader creates chaos, and more than one prophet creates factions and rivalries. Again, logic. Through Nokodemion's intensive instruction, the peoples he brought into being did evolve very quickly, but in a way that was too theoretical because they lacked the experience and wisdom that would have prevented a faulty development, Fehlentwicklung. NP 13. Those that Nokodemion brought into being as clones or by means of artificial procreation, who had fully developed bodies capable of intellect and rationality, but were inhabited by newly created spirit forms, lacked a normal consciousness development that would have occurred had they begun as the basic or form human being, and evolved to that point naturally. they had a deficit of instinct and intuition. They lacked a complete foundation for the Geisteslehre that Nokodemion provided them with. And so they went the wrong way much later, after Nokodemion was no longer around, and they had to then make up the lacking experience over a long period of time. Nevertheless, they still reached the evolutionary seal that Nokodemion set for them, and eventually entered the level of the High Council, as all spirit forms eventually do, in the aimed-for time period. Perhaps we see reflections in the current form of the Geisteslehre of these experiences that Nokodemion witnessed as a result of his program, in that it is so often stressed that no steps can be missed in our evolutionary journey, and that we must not just have book knowledge, but real experience of the teaching. However, it is easy to prematurely try to assess the merit of the great plan. Experience tells interested readers that huge amounts of relevant information still just hasn't been provided to us to fill the story out. Nonetheless, the whole story provides huge and quite refreshing perspectives about all sorts of things, such as the nature of the natural process of making errors and correcting them, even in the case of the universal prophet. So in this story we can see that, along with such diverse things as love and errors, and system and order, prophets, carefully embedded in that system and order, are also necessary to bring about the evolution of the universe.
Vivienne Leg,